They say the dead do not cling to places, but to promises. Welcome to Ghosts of Asia, where urban legends bleed into concrete walls, and the past never truly lets go. Tonight, we take you deep into the heart of Jakarta, where glass towers rise, but shadows fall longer than they should. Where an apartment destroyed by fire somehow still has lights on, and where a woman, dressed in red, waits for a visitor who may never return. This isn't just a ghost story. It's a memory that refused to fade. A call unanswered, a ritual left incomplete, a soul suspended between smoke and silence. This is Her Apartment Was Demolished Last Year, and yet someone is still living in Unit 1006.
Jakarta never really sleeps. It flickers, it hums, it watches. Andika had learned this in the years since his wife passed. The world didn't pause for mourning. The streets still buzzed with scooters. The city still exhaled through the lungs of a million air conditioners. Life moved forward, and you were expected to keep up or get buried under its neon tide. It was a Tuesday night when the message came in. Late, nearly 11:47 p.m. At first, he thought it was spam. Requesting urgent viewing, apartment 1006, Block D, available tonight only, cash commission bonus. The name on the request, Ayu, no last name. The message was formal, polite, too polite. Andika rubbed his eyes and leaned back in his swivel chair. The fan overhead buzzed lazily. He glanced at the calendar on his desk. No upcoming viewings, no pending deals, just a red circle around rent day. A reminder that being a freelance real estate agent without a steady client list meant living one lead at a time. He almost dismissed it until he saw the location, Block D, Skyline Residences. He frowned. Block D? He opened the archived listings. Nothing. That building had been closed for over a year. A massive fire, electrical fault. Half the upper floors had collapsed. It had made headlines. There were still lawsuits pending. No listings, no active permits. He checked again. There it was. Apartment 1006. He clicked on the GPS pin sent in the follow-up message. It resolved perfectly on the map. No error. The tag even included a timestamp. Confirmed access tonight. Lift operational. Urgent. She waits. That line stood out. It wasn't a typical buyer's tone. Still, something tugged at him. A half-starved part of him that remembered the commissions he used to make before everything went wrong, before the markets collapsed, before his life imploded. He stared at the screen. Then, slowly, deliberately, he put on his shoes. The drive through Jakarta at midnight had its own rhythm, less honking, more silence, the usual chaos dimmed beneath the blanket of early hours. Andika's car coughed slightly as he pulled onto the toll road, the skyline lit in cold, artificial blues. Block D sat on the eastern fringe of the complex, a forgotten appendage of an otherwise luxury development. When he arrived, the main gate was chained shut, but the side entrance, the old staff access, was ajar. No guards, no cameras. He hesitated, then pushed the gate. The wind carried a strange scent. Ash? No, older than that, like burned incense left too long on an altar. He made his way inside. The lobby was dark, water-stained, and eerily still, the kind of stillness that felt arranged. A single elevator stood operational. The LED screen flickered weakly, but responded when he pressed the call button. Ding! The elevator opened smoothly. No dust inside. He He stepped in and hesitated before touching the control panel, then paused. 10. The button glowed red. All others were dim. He stared at it. Then slowly, deliberately, he reached out and pressed it. Ding! The elevator began to rise. The ride up felt longer than it should have. Floor numbers blinked with each passing level, but the air grew heavier, like the pressure was rising instead of falling. At floor 10, the doors opened with a mechanical hiss. The hallway before him was dim but intact. A long corridor stretched in both directions, but only one unit had a soft light bleeding out from underneath its door. He swallowed. The hallway smelled of camphor and something sweeter, like jasmine, the kind of scent used in temples or funerals. As he approached, he noticed something strange: the silence. No creaking pipes, no insects, not even the distant hum of electricity. He raised his hand to knock, but the door opened before his knuckles touched it. A woman stood there. Mid-30s, pale, thin. Her long black hair was pinned loosely over one shoulder. She wore a red dress, not bright but deep, like aged wine or dried blood. Her expression was unreadable. Her eyes held stillness, but her smile was soft, expectant. "You're early," she said. Her voice was delicate, almost fragile. Then she stepped aside. "Come in. I've been waiting to move on." Andika's shoes clicked softly against the polished wood floor. The interior of apartment 1006 was pristine, cleaner than any unit he'd shown all year. Modern furniture, neutral tones, a hint of gold leaf on the ceiling, fresh incense burning gently in a ceramic bowl near the window, a vase of white lilies on the table. Even the lighting was warm and inviting. Too inviting. He glanced around. There were family photos on the shelf, but every frame, every face was blurred. Not pixelated, not scratched, just indistinct, as if someone had smudged the memories behind the glass. The woman noticed his gaze. Memories fade, but sometimes they stain. He looked at her. "Sorry, are you the tenant?" She didn't answer directly. "I used to live here, but some things never fully leave." She sat down cross-legged on the couch and gestured for him to join her. He remained standing. "You don't remember me, do you?" "I don't think we've met." "I promised you'd come, eventually. I knew you would." Andika cleared his throat, trying to anchor himself. "You requested a viewing. Are you looking to lease the unit?" She tilted her head. "Would you stay, even if it's not real?" That question hung in the air like humidity. He opened his mouth to respond, but stopped when he noticed the reflection in the mirror behind her. The apartment was burned. Charred walls, exposed beams, the vase of lilies wilted and black, and the woman was gone. Only a scorched chair sat in her place. He blinked. The illusion returned. Everything was pristine again. She smiled, unbothered. "This place remembers, even if the city forgets." He stood. "I think I need to go." "You always do, but I hope next time you'll stay longer." As he stepped toward the door, her voice followed him, softer now, but certain. "When you return, bring incense, and don't forget my name this time." Outside, the hallway was darker, colder. He pushed the elevator button. It didn't respond, until he whispered, 10. Ding! The elevator opened. He stepped in and descended. When he reached the lobby again, the lights were flickering. He hurried to his car, breathing fast, chest tight. He didn't look back. Only when he was halfway across the city did he finally exhale. What the hell had just happened? Back at home, he sat at his desk with his phone in hand. The message history was still there. The request, the name, Ayu, the GPS pin, the timestamp. He opened his call log. The incoming number from earlier? +62-1006-1006. Too perfect, too wrong. His phone buzzed. Voicemail. He stared at the screen. No. But curiosity won. He played it. Soft breathing, then her voice. You promised to help me move on. A pause. Why did you leave? The line went dead. Andika stared at the screen for a long time. Then deleted nothing.
Some buildings die quickly. Others linger, like a breath held too long, unfinished, unsaid. Indika didn't sleep that night. He sat at his kitchen table long after the voicemail ended, phone screen dimmed, mug of coffee gone cold. Outside, the city was already shaking off its dawn haze, but inside his apartment, the air was heavy with questions. Who was she? Why was the apartment intact? Why was he able to access a floor that had been marked destroyed? He knew what he saw, and more dangerously, what he felt. That wasn't a prank. That wasn't a hallucination. That place remembered him. And worse, she had spoken like they'd met before. By late morning, Andika gave in to his instincts, the part of him that needed to understand. He returned to the agency office, a cluttered hole-in-the-wall sandwiched between a shuttered laundromat and a vape cafe. The receptionist was a college kid who barely looked up from his phone. You ever hear of anyone still listing Block D? Andika asked. The kid snorted. You mean the haunted one? I'm serious. So am I. My cousin lives near Skyline. Says the entire block's sealed. People still smell smoke some nights. They say there was a cleansing gone wrong, like spiritual cleansing. A medium burned alive. Indika stared. I thought it was faulty wiring. Nah, man, news said that, but the local forums, they've got photos, burn marks in weird shapes, a video of the fire spreading in reverse. It's cursed, bro, cursed. Indika left without saying another word. Skyline Residences, Block D. Returning in daylight didn't make the place any less grim. The complex itself was still partially operational. Families moved in and out of the other towers, children laughed in the garden between Block A and Block B. There was even a security guard drinking tea at the main gate. But Block D was different. It sat at the far end of the development like a forgotten limb, cordoned off with cracked tiles, a rusted sign, and a peeling under-renovation banner that fluttered weakly in the wind. Andika parked a distance away. He approached slowly, instinctively scanning the area for cameras, eyes, explanations. There were none. When he reached the entrance, he noticed something strange. The keypad. It was on. Lit. Responsive. Despite the building having no reported power. He reached out. His fingers hovered. Then, he pressed call elevator. Ding! The doors slid open. Indika blinked. No graffiti, no damage. The interior looked exactly as it had the night before, maybe even cleaner. He stepped inside. The control panel glowed faintly. Every floor button was dark, except 10. He didn't press it this time.
but the elevator rose anyway. Floor 10, midday. The hallway looked different in daylight, but only slightly. Sunlight filtered through broken windows at the far end, casting long skeletal shadows. The floor was warped in places. The wallpaper peeled in curling strips like old skin. But at the far end, apartment 1006 remained untouched. Lights on, incense faintly glowing behind the frosted glass panel on the door. He approached cautiously. This time, there was no one waiting to open it. He raised his hand, then stopped. A photo was taped to the door. Black and white, a family portrait, aged and weathered. 2 adults, 1 child, all smiling, but their faces were burned out of the paper, leaving only white voids where eyes and mouths should be. Written beneath it, in faded red ink, "She is still here." Ndika stepped back, heart thudding. He turned and hurried down the corridor, back to the elevator, but the panel was dark now, lifeless. He banged on the buttons, nothing. The hallway behind him felt longer than before. The air was thicker, almost wet. Then a sound from down the corridor. A voice, whispering, "You came back." Ndika ran down the stairwell 2 steps at a time, not daring to look back. Each floor he passed seemed more decrepit than the last. Crumbled walls, exposed wiring, graffiti in a language he couldn't read. He didn't stop until he burst out into the daylight again, lungs heaving, heart punching against his ribs. Outside, everything was normal. A mother walked past with a toddler, the sun was warm, a bicycle bell rang from a nearby driveway. But inside him, something shifted. The veil between the ordinary and the unseen had thinned, cracked, and it all led back to one impossible truth. Apartment 1006 still stood. And someone, or something, was still waiting. Later that day, back in his apartment, Ndika dove deeper. He searched every real estate archive, every zoning report, every article about the fire. Officially, Block D had suffered a catastrophic electrical failure. 12 confirmed casualties, 18 units declared unstable. The upper floors were deemed a total loss. But there was a single line in one of the earliest reports, a quote from a resident who'd survived. "We heard her chanting, then the walls caught fire, but she didn't scream. She just kept whispering until the smoke turned red." No name given, no follow-up. He searched forums, comment threads, Reddit posts. Some were jokes, others trolls, but a few felt too specific to ignore. Don't answer if she calls from +62-1006-1006. If you dream of jasmine and mirrors, don't go back. Block D was a gate. Something was trying to leave, and someone failed to close it. One photo made him freeze. A blurry image of a woman in a red dress standing in a broken hallway. No face, just the outline. Posted 3 years ago, before the fire. Username, Kartika. The caption, "She only waits for those who remember her." Ndika shut his laptop slowly. He didn't know what unnerved him more, the photo, the username, or the possibility that he had forgotten something or someone. Kartika. Was that her name? He said it out loud. Kartika. Nothing happened, but in the silence that followed, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. No name. Just the numbers. +62-1006-1006.
Some doors don't open with keys. They open with memory, or guilt, or unfinished promises. Andika didn't answer the call. He stared at the screen until it went dark. Then he turned his phone off completely. But that night, sleep wouldn't come. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her, the woman in the red dress, sitting cross-legged, smiling softly, as if he were the answer to a question she never got to ask. He lay in bed, drenched in sweat, sheets tangled, the fan overhead clicking like a metronome, counting down to something he couldn't name. And when he finally drifted off, it wasn't rest, it was return. In the dream, he stood once more at the hallway of floor 10. The walls bled ash. The lights pulsed dimly like breath. He moved without walking, drawn forward, barefoot on cold tiles that echoed too loud. The door to 1006 was already ajar. Inside, incense curled like fingers toward the ceiling. And there she was, Kartika, wearing red, pale, waiting. But this time, she wasn't alone. Behind her stood shadows, shapes, unclear but watching. Their presence filled the apartment like smoke, not visible, but suffocating. She raised one hand and beckoned. "Come in." He tried to speak but couldn't. His voice stuck somewhere between throat and thought. "You left too soon," she whispered. "Now you'll forget again." He stepped inside. He woke with a jolt, sitting up, gasping. His phone, though still powered off, buzzed once, then again. He picked it up. The screen blinked to life on its own. New voicemail. No missed call. Timestamp, 3:33 a.m. His blood turned to ice. He hesitated, then pressed play. Breathing, soft, wet. Then, "This place still remembers you. Don't make it remember you the wrong way." The message ended. He didn't sleep again that night. The third visit. The next day, Andika stood once more at the entrance to Block D. He didn't know why he came back. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe fear, maybe something older, like an anchor pulling him back to a shore he never meant to leave. The keypad still worked, the elevator still came. And as before, only floor 10 was available. Ding! He stepped out. And this time, he didn't hesitate. He walked straight to apartment 1006. The hallway felt different, more aware, as if the walls were listening, waiting. He reached the door. It opened before he touched it. Inside, Kartika stood exactly where she had in the dream. "You came back." He stepped inside. "I need to understand," he said. She smiled, not warmly, but gently, like someone welcoming a long-lost child who had finally come home. "Then sit," she said, "and listen." He sat on the floor across from her. A low table between them held offerings, fruit, rice, a bowl of salt, and a photo, one that looked familiar. His own face blurred. "Why me?" he asked. "You opened the door. I didn't. Not in this life." That silenced him. She gestured to the photo. "Memories don't die when bodies do. Some stain the walls, some stain people." He felt cold. This unit was meant to be cleansed. A soul here couldn't pass, but the ritual was interrupted. "By the fire?" She nodded. "I was conducting it. You were supposed to assist." Andika shook his head slowly. "That's not possible. Not in your timeline, no. But time here stretches, repeats, bleeds through." He looked around. The apartment flickered. For a moment, the pristine interior gave way to blackened beams, charred offerings, a fire long since died, but never truly gone. And in the flicker, he saw her face burn, and her body didn't scream. It prayed. "You left," she said. "I didn't know." "You forgot." She leaned forward, but the unit didn't. Andika stood abruptly, heart racing. "I can't be part of this. I'm not who you think I am." Kartika didn't move. Her voice was soft. "Not yet." He stepped backward toward the door. "You need to go back to where it began. The stairwell, the fire, the promise." "What promise?" "You said you'd come back." His hand reached for the door handle. "You said you'd help me move on." Outside the apartment, the hallway stretched again, longer, darker. The lights overhead flickered in slow, deliberate rhythm. He pressed the elevator button. It didn't respond. He whispered, "Please." Ding! The doors opened. Back in his car, Andika sat for a long time before driving. The scent of incense still clung to his clothes. He reached into his jacket pocket for his phone, but found something else. A folded piece of paper. Inside, a photo, black and white. A ritual circle. Salt. Symbols drawn in red. In the center, a woman in red and a man kneeling beside her. The man was him. That night, Andika went online again, not to real estate forums this time, but to occult archives. He searched keywords he never imagined himself typing. Ritual cleansing Jakarta apartment. Fire medium soul trap. Kartika ritual unfinished. Ghost of Unit 1006. One thread had no replies, but it chilled him. Posted anonymously, dated 2 years ago. I hear her humming in my dreams. I didn't even live there, but I saw the red door once. Now I can't unsee her. She keeps asking if I remember. I lie. I always lie. Because if I say yes, I know I'll never wake up. Andika closed the tab. His reflection in the laptop screen looked off. Too pale. Eyes too dark. Then he noticed the scent again. Jasmine. Incense. Camphor. From inside his apartment. He turned, and on the floor was laid in salt the symbol from the photo. It hadn't been there a moment ago.
Buildings forget nothing. The walls know more than they're willing to reveal. But sometimes they bleed their memories into yours. The symbol on Andika's floor was still faintly glowing when he reached for the light switch, but the light didn't come on. His apartment, which had always felt cramped but familiar, suddenly felt borrowed, like someone else was already living in the corners, just out of view. He stepped over the salt circle slowly, careful not to disturb it. He didn't know why, but something deep inside warned him, do not break the shape. He opened every drawer, checked every window. No sign of forced entry. Yet the scent of burning incense hung in the air, the same scent from 1006, from her, Kartika. Her name now echoed through him like a bell struck softly but endlessly, reverberating. He didn't sleep. Instead, he sat by the circle, staring, watching, waiting for it to vanish. But it never did. And when dawn broke, he knew one thing for certain. This was a summoning. Not his, hers. Later that morning, Andika returned to the only place where things made less sense than his own apartment, Block D. By now, he no longer questioned the logic of it. He didn't even pretend this was about real estate anymore. This was about memory, about something unfinished, and about the haunting suspicion that part of his soul never left apartment 1006 because it was never fully his to begin with. The elevator greeted him like an old friend. The 10 button was already glowing when he entered, though he didn't touch a thing. The doors closed. No music, no buzz, just the quiet groan of time rewinding. When the doors opened, the hallway was different, worse. The walls pulsed, literally breathed, as if the building had taken a slow, quiet inhale. Paint peeled in patterns that almost resembled writing, jagged lines that twisted into spirals and symbols. One word repeated in red smears beneath the wall lamps: remember. He reached apartment 1006. The door was open. Kartika was not waiting this time. He stepped inside alone. Inside 1006. The room had changed again. The layout was the same, but the decor had shifted. Gone was the modern furniture. Gone were the white lilies. Now the unit looked older, mid-century pieces, faded curtains, sepia-toned lighting. The furniture was covered in plastic. Dust particles hung motionless in the air, like stars frozen in space. He moved slowly, taking it in. There were no sounds, only the soft hum of something below hearing, like a memory trying to surface. He approached the wall near the kitchen. Family photos still hung there, but this time the faces were clearer. His stomach dropped. One of them was his. Not exactly, not the current him, but close. The shape of the jaw, the posture, the tilt of the head. Next to him, Kartika, dressed not in red this time, but in ceremonial white, eyes dark and unreadable, standing in front of the same apartment door. They were both smiling. Andika reached up to touch the frame, and the photo changed. Now it showed the apartment burning. Kartika kneeling in the salt circle, eyes closed, mouth open in a silent chant. Fire crawling up the curtains. The man, him, reaching for the door, halfway out, leaving. "Do you think memories can stain walls?" The voice came from behind him. He turned. Kartika stood at the hallway entrance, her hair damp as if freshly washed, her dress clinging to her like she'd just emerged from water. Her eyes were glassy, her skin pale as porcelain. "I saw the photo," Andika said. "You were supposed to stay." "I didn't know." "You forgot," she whispered. "Why are you showing me this?" She stepped into the light. It flickered with her movement. "Because this place remembers everything, and so do I. You left me in the fire." "I didn't mean to." Intent doesn't cleanse the wound. She sat on the couch. It creaked under her as if bearing more than just her weight. "This unit is a container, a vessel for unresolved echoes. We were supposed to finish the ritual, but it takes two. I opened the door for the dead. You were supposed to close it." "I don't know how." "You did once." She nodded toward the closet door across the room. "It's in there, what you left behind." Endika approached the door. His hand trembled as he reached for the handle. The knob was ice cold. He opened it. Inside was his old shirt, burned, singed at the sleeves, folded neatly over a box. Inside the box, salt, charcoal, jasmine flowers, a photo of Kartika as a child, a silver bowl with her name etched on the underside, and a book, small, handwritten, ritual instructions, a cleansing guide, all in his handwriting. "You remembered," she said softly. "I don't know what this means." She looked up at him, and for the first time, she looked tired. Not ghostly, not haunting, just exhausted. "I've relived that night over and over. Every time you return, you get closer, but you always leave before it's done." "How many times?" "Too many." He kneeled beside her. "What do I do?" She looked at him and then touched his forehead with her index and middle fingers. "Let it in." The vision. He wasn't in the apartment anymore. He was in the past. The walls were clean. The room smelled of sandalwood and spice. Dozens of candles flickered in concentric circles. Kartika stood in the center chanting. He, the other him, placed salt at the corners of the room, chanting in unison. Then a crash, a scream. A door opened, wind rushed in. Something dark entered. The candles flickered violently. Endika, the other one, faltered, broke the line of salt, panicked, ran. Kartika kept chanting. The fire spread. Then the vision ended. He gasped awake, still in the apartment. She was gone. The room was empty, quiet. On the table the ritual items remained, but the book was now open, the first line underlined in red. "If one runs, the door remains open." And underneath, scrawled in newer handwriting, "If one returns, the door may finally close."
Not all spirits linger to haunt. Some stay to wait because time abandoned them before memory could. The apartment was empty. Andika stood in the middle of Unit 1006, still catching his breath, the echo of the vision lingering like ash on his skin. Kartika was gone, but not gone. Her presence clung to the space, not just in the air, but in the feeling of it. The walls weren't just walls anymore. They were memory, remnant, residue. He looked at the table again. The ritual items sat motionless, undisturbed, but a new object had appeared beside the bowl of salt. A mirror, small, round, the kind you'd carry in a purse, but cracked down the center. On the back, engraved in delicate script, "She waits where time broke." Andika took the mirror. The crack shimmered faintly, almost pulsing with breath. Then he heard it again, not in his ears, but in the center of his skull.
A voice. Her voice. The door was never locked. You just forgot how to open it from the inside. He turned slowly. Behind him, the hallway was gone. In its place stood the corridor of another building, narrower, older, dimmer, damp walls, dusty fluorescent lights humming faintly. The air smelled of mildew and incense. The mirror in his hand glowed warmer. He stepped through the other hallway. This place wasn't part of Block D. It was adjacent, connected, not by bricks or blueprints, but by grief, like a spiritual annex for the forgotten. A single door stood at the end of the hall, black wood, no number. He walked slowly, each step echoing louder than the last. As he reached the door, the mirror in his hand cracked further. A line split across the top, then spidered toward the center. He opened the door. Inside, Kartika, not seated, not smiling, standing, silent, dressed entirely in white. She turned to him, eyes red, not with blood, with sorrow. "This is where I wait." Andika stepped in. The space was small, a room made of memory. Faded photographs hung without nails, floating. Scraps of prayer cloths, a broken pendant. The air shimmered as if underwater. He tried to speak. She held up her hand. "You left before the fire. You always leave. I'm here now. You're close now, but close doesn't close the door." He walked to her slowly. "Can you help me finish it?" She gestured to the corner of the room. There, etched in chalk on the ground, was a partial circle. Salt surrounded 3 sides, but the last quadrant was broken. "The line you never drew," she said. "Can I finish it now?" "Only if you remember what we summoned." He hesitated. "I thought we were cleansing something." "We were, but you forgot what we were cleansing from." She turned to face the mirror in his hand. "Look." Andika lifted the mirror. In the reflection, not himself, but her. In fire, on the floor, chanting with cracked lips. And behind her, a figure tall and shapeless, covered in char and shadow. No face, just a mouth, stretched too wide, whispering backward. And then himself, the past self, fleeing. The shadow followed him, not her. "It never bound to me," she said softly. "It wanted you. Then why did it stay?" "Because I made it." She turned to face him now, eyes sharp. "I trapped it here, so it wouldn't follow you out." "You sacrificed yourself?" She nodded. "But a cage is only strong when the key doesn't return." The room began to tremble. The floating photos fluttered violently. The prayer cloths disintegrated mid-air. The mirror in Andika's hand cracked once more and shattered. Darkness oozed from the corners. A voice, deep and slow, like molasses pouring in reverse, began to rise from beneath the floorboards. "You remember me now." Kartika stepped between Andika and the spreading dark. "You have to finish the circle, now." "How?" "With your name." "My name?" "The one you had before." Andika's head throbbed. Flashes, not memories, but presences. He saw the ritual again, saw himself, but not himself, a different name, a different time. He saw him kneeling beside her, drawing salt with steady hands, whispering a prayer in Javanese he didn't know he knew. "Dumadaka ning donya, but not Bali ora dewenan." Kartika whispered it with him. "Born alone into the world, but return not alone." His lips finished the line. Jiningru, the name returned. Raka, that was who he was, the assistant, the anchor, the one who broke the ritual and doomed her. He turned, the salt line. With trembling fingers he reached into the pouch Kartika handed him. White grain spilled out. He bent, drew the final arc, the circle closed. The room shook violently. The floor cracked. The shadow screamed, not in volume, but in frequency, a warping sound, reality itself resisting. Kartika closed her eyes. You remembered. Now you can end it. What about you? She smiled. I've been waiting for you to remember long enough to let me go. He reached for her. She stepped back. Raka, thank you for coming back. You never had to stay, but this time you did. The salt circle glowed bright white. The shadow burst into light, then folded inward. The mirror shards lifted off the floor, suspended, spinning in a whirlwind of wind, ash, memory, then silence. Just silence. And she was gone. Back in apartment 1006, Andika blinked. He was kneeling on the floor. The apartment was normal again, pristine, white lilies on the table, a faint glow of incense. He looked at the wall. The photos were all blank now, clean, no faces, no stains, no stains. The mirror was whole, sitting calmly beside the salt bowl. He stood, went to the door, opened it. The hallway was empty, still, and for the first time, peaceful. He stepped into the elevator, pressed G. This time, it worked.
Some exits are illusions. Some doors open inward. And sometimes, what follows you isn't a ghost, but the echo of the version of you that never left. Andika did not go straight home. He didn't even start the engine at first. He sat in his car in the lot outside Block D, the silence around him unsettling in its normalcy. No strange calls, no burning smells, just the city going about its day. Children playing somewhere behind a wall, a distant motorcycle, the smell of rain on concrete. Everything should have felt fine, but it didn't. Something had shifted inside him. He looked at his hands gripping the steering wheel. They were trembling, not from fear, from emptiness. For days, Andika tried to return to routine. Wake up, answer messages, show apartments, send emails. But everything felt paper thin, like life was running on a loop 1 second behind itself. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was following him. Not a presence exactly, but an awareness, like every room he entered had just finished watching him. The messages start again. The first came 3 nights later, a single missed call. +62-1006-1006. He let it ring. Didn't answer. The voicemail was blank. The second night, a text. Did you think it was over? He blocked the number. The third night, there was no call. Just a knock at the door. 3 short taps. When he opened it, no one. But on the floor sat a burned photograph. The same image from Kartika's apartment. Them, smiling. Only now, his face was burned out. He began seeing flashes in mirrors. Not faces, not shadows, but moments. Kartika lighting incense. The salt circle reappearing faintly on his kitchen tiles. His own reflection moving slightly out of sync with him. Seeking answers. Desperate, Andika visited a spiritual practitioner recommended by one of his older clients, a quiet woman in her 60s who ran a small herb shop in Glodok.
The practitioner's name was Ibu Saras. She sat across from him in a small, incense-heavy room, surrounded by jars of dried roots and yellowed paper talismans. He told her everything. She didn't interrupt, didn't blink. When he finished, she leaned forward. "You closed the ritual, but you didn't close the memory." "What does that mean?" "That apartment wasn't just a place. It was a mirror. It reflects who you were and who you could have become." Andika frowned. "But I remembered. I helped her move on. Isn't that what she wanted?" Ibu Saras shook her head slowly. "She waited for your memory, but something else was waiting for your identity." "I don't understand." "You came back changed, yes?" He nodded. "Then it followed." "What followed?" She looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. "The part of you that never left the fire." That night, Andika tried not to sleep. He brewed coffee. He watched the news. He scrolled through his phone until his eyes ached. But exhaustion always wins. He fell asleep around 4 a.m. and woke up, standing in the hallway of his old apartment. Not his real one, not anymore. He was back in 1006. But this time, everything was reversed. The walls on the wrong sides, furniture upside down, windows where doors should be. The salt circle glowed red instead of white. And in the center of the room sat a figure in his exact shape. Same face, same voice. "You ran." Andika tried to move, but his feet wouldn't respond. "You left her. I stayed. I came back. I helped her. I paid the price." The shadow Andika stood. His eyes were solid black, no whites, no pupils. "You got out. I stayed. Now we're uneven." He stepped forward. "Let's balance the memory." Andika gasped awake, back in bed, soaked in sweat. Sheets coiled around his ankles like chains. He looked at the mirror on the far wall. It was cracked, right down the center. When he called the developer again, he needed answers, real ones. He dug up his old contact, the project manager listed on the original Skyline Residence's blueprints. He arranged a meeting in person. The man was reluctant, but agreed. They met at a quiet cafe across town. Andika didn't waste time. "I told you 1006 was destroyed." "It was." "Then how did I walk through it multiple times?" The man looked around before leaning in. "You're not the first." "What?" "That unit, people keep seeing it. Security guards, cleaners, agents, even engineers. And every time someone interacts with it, something follows them out. Like a curse?" "Not a curse, more like a reflection that doesn't want to fade." "So why not destroy the building?" "We did." Andika stared at him. "What?" "A month ago. It's gone. Flattened. There's nothing there now." "But I was just there last week." "Then you weren't in our reality." Andika left the cafe with a hollow weight in his chest. If Block D no longer existed, then where had he been? The final sign. That evening, as the sun dipped below the city and the light turned bronze, Andika stood at his window watching. He felt it before he saw it. A ripple in the air, a shift in the light, and then, reflected in the glass, a hallway, not his, 1006's. He turned quickly, nothing behind him, but when he looked again, the hallway remained in the glass. And there, at the far end, Kartika, smiling, wearing white now, one hand raised. "One step left, then you'll be whole again." The mirror cracked. Andika reached toward it, and as his fingertips touched the glass, he remembered. He never really left.
You can tear down a building, but you can't demolish a haunting. Not when the blueprint was drawn in grief. Andika sat in his car long after the sun went down. He didn't drive. He didn't speak. He just stared at the reflection in the rear-view mirror, waiting for something that already knew him too well. In the mirror, his own eyes looked unfamiliar. Not evil, not possessed, just different. Tired of carrying memories that didn't belong to this version of him. Tired of pretending this was over, because it wasn't. The next morning, he called the developer again, not the project manager, the owner. He didn't expect the call to go through, but it did. The voice that answered was polite, controlled. But when Andika introduced himself, there was a pause, just a moment too long. "You're the agent who accessed 1006, yes?" Andika hesitated. "Yes." Another pause. Then, "Do you have time to come in?" The meeting. The office wasn't listed on Google. Andika found it tucked into an older part of the city, not glass and steel, but faded marble, silent elevators, and the smell of dried paper. The man who greeted him introduced himself only as Mr. Tandiono, elegant, reserved, late 60s. He motioned for Andika to sit, then offered tea, which Andika declined. "You know about the fire," Tandiono said, "but you don't know the rest." "I know the unit wasn't supposed to exist anymore." Tandiono nodded. "We demolished Block D 3 weeks ago. There's nothing left. Concrete, steel, rebar, all removed." Andika leaned forward. "Then explain how I walked through it. Explain how I've been inside that apartment, more than once." Tandiono didn't flinch, because 1006 never existed only physically. It was a replication. A what? Some buildings inherit trauma. Others become containers for it. But in rare cases, when a death is ritually interrupted, a space becomes recursive. It restarts itself, replays. It duplicates its own layout in the memory of the city. It becomes real only to the ones it wants. Andika's mouth dried. "You're saying the apartment rebuilt itself in memory?" "No." Tandiono paused. "I'm saying the apartment became a memory that refused to stay forgotten." He opened a drawer, pulled out an old manila folder. Inside, blueprints, handwritten annotations in Javanese script, diagrams that had been altered post-construction. He slid them toward Andika. "These are from the original site team. They began noticing inconsistencies, doorways that weren't in the original plan, rooms that didn't match the square footage, hallways that curved slightly more each week." "That's impossible. I thought so too, until I entered it myself." Andika looked up sharply. "You were inside?" Tandiono's gaze dropped. "My daughter was a spiritual consultant, a medium. She was part of the ritual. Her name was Kartika." Andika froze. "She wasn't supposed to die," Tandiono said quietly. His voice cracked, just once. "She had done dozens of clearings, but this time something followed her in, something that wasn't meant to leave." He continued. "After she died, the unit stopped behaving like a space. It became a loop. Others saw her, dreamed of her. Apartment 1006 started appearing in dreams, people drawn to it. Most forget, some don't. So you destroyed the building."
Tandiono nodded. We hoped it would end the recursion, but it didn't. Because 1006 isn't in the concrete. It's in the promise. The ritual was never closed. Andika whispered, But I closed it. Tandiono stared at him. Then why are you still here? The room seemed colder. Andika looked at the blueprints again. He traced the outline of Unit 1006 with his finger. There was something odd, a symbol etched faintly into the layout, almost invisible unless you were looking for it. What's this? Tandiono leaned in. His face paled. That wasn't there before. What does it mean? Tandiono didn't answer. Instead, he opened a different folder, one filled with incident reports. Short blurbs, notes. Guard 2 reported seeing a woman in red, Block D, 3 a.m. Cleaner refused to re-enter elevator, claimed it went to floor 10 alone. Agent Andika reported inside unit post-demolition. That last line, that was him. These aren't coincidences, Tandiono said. No, they're invitations. He looked up at Andika. My daughter isn't the only one who was bound. What are you saying? Every time you entered 1006, you reawakened the pattern, the reflection. I thought I helped her move on. Maybe you did. Then why is it still calling me? Tandiono didn't speak for a moment. Then he said quietly, Because now it's your turn to stay. The room was silent for a long time. Then Tandiono slid one final object across the desk, a key, old-fashioned, brass, heavy. Andika stared at it. The building's gone. So is she. But some doors still exist in the places between. That night, Andika went home. He didn't sleep. He sat by the mirror, waited, and when the hour grew quiet enough to hear memory breathe, he saw it. A hallway, familiar, dimly lit, walls peeling, apartment 1006. The door was open.
Sometimes the dead don't knock, they call. And their words aren't requests. They're reminders of promises you made and failed to keep. Andika didn't answer the phone anymore. Not when it rang from +62 106 106. Not when the screen said unknown. He had learned. You can only listen to so many voicemails from a woman who's supposed to be dead before your mind starts to fray, like an old thread pulled too tight. But tonight, something was different. The call didn't ring. It played automatically. His phone didn't light up. It spoke. A soft voice through the speaker. Not loud, not urgent, just sad. You promised to help me move on. Why did you leave? A pause. Then I waited. Again. The line went dead. Andika stared at the phone. It was still off. He hadn't turned it on in 2 days. He dropped it on the counter and backed away. That was when he saw the photo. Taped to the mirror. A new one. This time, it was him inside 1006. But he hadn't been there since the last visit, since the ritual, since the mirror cracked. Except in the photo, he was standing in the center of the salt circle, alone. No Kartika, just him, eyes closed, palms turned upward, and behind him, a doorway that shouldn't exist. He called her. It was foolish, but guilt is louder than fear. He opened his contacts, scrolled, pressed the number.
+62, 106, 106. It rang. Once. Twice. Then silence. Then, "I knew you'd call." Her voice. But not through the speaker. Behind him. He turned, but the room was empty. He turned back to the phone. "You keep trying to leave," she whispered, "but you're still inside." Inside what? The echo. The echo. Andika began losing track of time. He'd pour tea and find it cold moments later. He'd blink and night had fallen. People spoke to him, but their voices came through water, muffled, distant. One afternoon he found himself at Block D again, though it no longer existed. The land was flat, cleared. A single sign read, "Future site of Riverside Villas," but when he blinked, he saw the elevator, standing alone in the middle of the dirt, open, waiting. He didn't enter, but when he got home that night, his shoes were muddy, and his voicemail was full, all from the same number. The messages were all short, breathing, footsteps, a door creaking, his own voice whispering, "Stay." But one message stood out because it was longer. He sat on the floor as it played. "You don't remember the last time, do you? You said you'd stay until the door closed, but when it opened again, you left. I held the boundary. I took the flames. I gave up my name. But the ritual needs two. One to enter, one to return. You left me to do both." Andika felt cold seep into the floor beneath him. Not metaphorically, literally. The tiles beneath him were wet. He stood quickly. The circle of salt was back, drawn beneath the rug, this time unbroken. And in the center, a phone. Old, rotary, red. It began to ring. The conversation. He didn't want to answer it, but something in him reached forward. The second his fingers touched the receiver, the room froze. The walls blurred. The mirror rippled. Raka. His old name. Her voice. "You're still trying to be Andika, but he was just the forgetting. You were the remembering." "I'm tired." "Then let go. I'll show you what's on the other side." "What if I can't come back?" "That's not your role anymore." He closed his eyes. "Why me?" "Because you were the only one who said yes." The phone dissolved in his hand, literally, crumbled into dust. The room shifted. He was back in 10:06, but this time it wasn't a haunting, it was a choice. She appears. Kartika stood near the window, no longer translucent, no longer flickering, whole, real, alive somehow. She turned to him. "Do you remember now?" "I remember failing you." "You didn't fail. You fled. There's a difference." I stepped toward her. "What happens if I stay this time?" She looked at the floor. "Then I can finally rest." "And me?" "You become the voice that calls others back until someone finishes for you. Like a loop. Like a promise." I hesitated. I'm scared. Then you're still alive. The new ritual. She handed him a match, a bowl of salt, a thread of red string. She said, "One final step, but it has to be your voice." What do I say? Call yourself home. He knelt, closed his eyes, and whispered his name. Raka. The match flared. The salt glowed. The mirror cracked, but then healed. And for one moment, everything was still. No ghosts, no echoes, just quiet. He opened his eyes. She was gone. So was the apartment. He stood in a blank white room. No doors, no windows. Only a mirror. And his reflection smiled back. Then turned, even though he didn't move, and whispered, "Now it's your turn to wait."
When you leave incense for the dead, it's not just smoke that rises. It's memory. And sometimes memory has claws. Andika didn't speak for 3 days. He ate, barely, slept restlessly, kept the lights on, kept his phone off. But silence didn't bring peace. It brought presence. Rooms creaked in rhythm with his breath. The mirrors in his apartment fogged over, even when he hadn't showered. And the jasmine-sweet smell of incense clung to everything: his pillows, his clothes, even the fridge. By the 4th day, he understood. He hadn't escaped the haunting. He had become its vessel. He sought a cleanse. He went back to Ibu Saras. She saw him walk in and didn't ask questions. She simply closed the shutters, lit 2 sticks of sandalwood incense, and placed a white cloth on the floor. "You've crossed too many thresholds," she said quietly. "You're tracking their dust." Andika nodded. "Can it be cleaned?" She didn't answer right away. She opened a wooden box and took out 3 small items: a sprig of dried turmeric, a bundle of lemongrass, and a folded square of ash-covered cloth. She placed them in a bowl, then added salt, rice, a single red petal. "Leave this where it began, but do not look back." "What happens if I do?" She met his eyes. "Then you'll bring the memory with you, forever." The return. That night, Andika returned to the place he had been avoiding, the site where Block D once stood. There was nothing there now, just a stretch of concrete and fencing marked by a sign: "Future Development. Construction begins October." But the land still felt sour, like soil that had absorbed too many secrets. He parked across the street, waited until no one was watching, then hopped the fence and made his way through the rubble. In the middle of the field, he stopped. He didn't use a compass. He didn't check coordinates. His feet knew where apartment 1006 had been. He crouched, set the bowl down, lit the incense. The smoke rose in a straight line, unnaturally still despite the breeze. Then he poured the ash from the cloth into the center of the offering. He whispered, "You are remembered, you are honored, you are free." He turned to leave, and then she spoke.
You left something behind. Kartika's voice, soft, just behind his ear. He froze. "Don't look back," he whispered to himself, but his body didn't listen. He turned. There was no one there, just the bowl. But the ash had formed a new shape, a handprint, pressed into the earth, fingers spread, not human-sized, larger. The incense stick snapped in half. The smoke reversed, pulled downward into the soil like breath inhaled too deep. Andika stepped back, but the ground beneath him rippled, and in that instant he understood. The offering wasn't a gift, it was a summons. The fire rekindled. He ran, back across the lot, over the fence, into his car. He drove without thought, hands trembling on the wheel. When he finally reached his apartment, the lights flickered before he even touched the switch. Inside, everything was wrong. Not messy, not broken, just shifted. His shoes faced the wrong way. His chairs were slightly further from the table. The mirror in the hallway reflected a room he wasn't standing in. And on the floor, a single white flower, dried. He picked it up. It disintegrated in his hand. Then his phone rang. +62 1006 1006. He let it ring, but it didn't stop. It rang all night, until dawn, and when the light finally crept across his floor, it cast no reflection on the mirror, because the mirror no longer showed him. It showed the apartment, still intact, still waiting. The dream. That night, sleep was not a choice. It took him. And when he opened his eyes, he was kneeling in a burned room. Everything charred, silent, still smoking. The walls breathed with heat. He turned and saw the bowl from the offering, but now it was full of blood, and a voice whispered from the corner, "You gave an offering, but not your truth." Kartika stepped into view. Her dress was red again, burned around the edges. Her eyes were blank. "You can't cleanse what you won't confess." "Confess what?" "You really came back because you wanted to belong." The truth pierced him. She was right. All his life, he'd felt displaced, unrooted, like he didn't fully exist in his own skin. But inside 1006, he felt known, seen. It wasn't just haunting him, it was claiming him, and a part of him wanted to stay, not out of duty, but out of longing. Kartika reached for his hand. "Then take your place." The fire roared behind her. The room went white. He woke up, choking on smoke. His room wasn't burning, but the incense had lit itself. The salt circle had reappeared, and the bowl, the one he'd buried, was now on his table, empty, waiting.
Every ritual is a door. Some open to freedom, others open to mirrors. But once the final chant begins, something always crosses over. The apartment was silent when Andika opened his eyes, but it was the wrong kind of silence. Too still, too exact, like a stage before the performance begins, waiting for its first line. The incense had burned to the end, leaving a thin line of ash across his desk.
The salt circle was back, this time drawn perfectly in fine white powder. He hadn't made it, but he recognized it. The bowl sat in the center, empty, expectant, and next to it, the ritual book. He had buried it, burned it, but now it was here again, its cover warm to the touch, beating faintly like a heart. The pages had changed. The handwriting was no longer his. The language was older, deeper, but he could understand it. He flipped through the pages until he reached the final one, a single sentence in red ink. "If you do not return, you will never leave." Underneath, scrawled in darker hand, "To finish the ritual, come alone. Bring nothing but what was taken." He read it 3 times before he understood. It wasn't about an offering. It was about a debt. That night, Andika didn't pack a bag. He didn't bring charms or protection. He brought only the key that Mr. Tandiongo had given him, the one said to open a door that no longer physically existed, and a photo of himself, as he had been before all of this, before he remembered who he had once been, before he became a mirror of a man named Raka. The return to Block D. There was no building, no elevator, just an empty lot and a silence that didn't belong to the city. But he walked anyway, across the gravel, past the sign, through the shadows of what had once been steel and glass. And then he saw it. The door. Free-standing, not connected to anything. Black wood, brass knob, no frame, just a door standing in the middle of the lot like it had always been there. He took the key. It fit perfectly. The lock turned. Click. Inside. He stepped into darkness, not absence of light darkness, but weight. The kind that settles on your shoulders, on your lungs, inside your memory. And then light. Candles, dozens, flickering in a perfect circle around him. And at the center of the room, as always, the salt, the bowl, the mirror, and Kartika, waiting. She wore white again. This time the edges of her robe were not burned. She looked at him not with sorrow, but with certainty. "You came." I nodded. "This time, I'm not leaving." She gestured to the floor. He stepped into the circle. The salt glowed faintly. The bowl filled itself with smoke, not incense, but memory. He saw flashes, himself as Raka chanting beside her. The moment he panicked and fled, the door ripping open, something crawling out, and Kartika kneeling, finishing the ritual alone. I tried to hold it, but a ritual split in half always poisons both halves. He looked at her. "Then let's finish it, together." The final chant. She handed him a thread of red string. One end was tied around her wrist. She tied the other to his. "This is the tether," she said. "If you run again, it will cut through you." He didn't argue. She knelt. He followed. They began the chant. Low, steady, old words, words that vibrated the floor, words he hadn't spoken in lifetimes but still remembered. The smoke in the bowl thickened. Shapes emerged. Faces, hands, memories not their own. And then it arrived, the figure. Cloaked in black, no face, no form, just absence. It hovered beyond the salt circle, pulsing like a heartbeat. "It remembers you," Kartika said softly. "It remembers you, too." "No, I'm already fading." He looked at her. Her outline was beginning to blur. "What's happening?" "You're taking my place." "No." "You must. That's the cost. The anchor must stay. You said we'd finish it together." "We are, by setting me free." He shook his head. "There must be another way." "This is the other way." "I didn't come here to trade places." "You didn't come here to escape either." The figure growled, not with sound but vibration. The circle trembled. The mirror cracked. The salt hissed. Andika looked down. The red thread connecting them was fraying, splitting. She looked at him one last time. "Remember me. That's all I ever wanted." Then she leaned forward, pressed her forehead to his, whispered a single word, "Go." And the thread snapped. The breaking. The moment it tore, a rush of heat exploded through the room. He was flung backward. The salt circle ignited. The mirror shattered. The smoke filled his lungs. And Kartika was gone. The figure screamed and collapsed inward, consumed by flame. And then, darkness. Complete. He woke in a hospital bed 2 days later. They said they found him collapsed at a demolition site, unconscious, alone. No wounds, no burns, just a deep ring of ash around where he had been lying, and a single object in his hand, a mirror, whole, untouched. But when he looked into it, he didn't see himself.
Some stains are too old to scrub, not because they can't be removed, but because they never truly began in this world. The doctors said it was exhaustion. They ran tests, monitored his brainwaves, gave him fluids, and asked polite questions about stress, diet, sleep. But no one could explain the ring of ash scorched into the dirt around his body. No one could explain the mirror clutched in his hand, warm to the touch, though it had spent hours in the early morning rain. They released him after 2 nights. No symptoms, no answers, only one instruction: rest. Home again. The moment Andika stepped into his apartment, he knew something had changed. At first glance, everything was where he left it. Shoes by the door, coat on the hook, light blinking softly on the answering machine. But the air had a texture, thick, waxy, like walking into a room that had been sealed for years. He placed the mirror gently on the kitchen counter, then noticed the floor, a single dark line, thin, jagged, stretching from the living room toward the hallway, like a crack, but not raised, not structural. It looked more like a scar. He knelt beside it, touched it lightly. It felt warm, alive. He followed the line into the hallway, and that's when he noticed something else. The floorboards had shifted, not in position, in pattern. What was once smooth wood was now faintly carved, in a circle, a salt circle. He stood up slowly, walked into the bathroom, splashed water on his face. When he looked up, the mirror didn't show him. It showed the apartment, apartment 1006, pristine, clean, lit with warm light.
A woman stood in the corner, not Kartika, someone else, faceless, watching. The journal. That night, unable to sleep, Andika searched his apartment for anything off, anything unfamiliar. He found it beneath the floorboard beneath his bed. A book, wrapped in black cloth. No title. Inside, his handwriting. Except he'd never written these words. I hear them under the floor. The salt is never enough. She moved on, but something else stayed. I think I brought it with me. Each page was more frantic, smudged, crossed out, rewritten. I see myself in the mirror, but I'm not blinking. My reflection follows me through rooms now. The door opens even when I lock it. And finally, if I'm reading this, I've already forgotten writing it. Andika closed the book. His hands were shaking. He walked to the kitchen. The mirror on the counter now faced him. His reflection blinked once, then smiled, but he didn't. Something is living here now. The apartment had grown a second presence, not loud, not violent, but invasive. The plants by the window withered overnight. Water left out turned sour in hours. He heard footsteps in the hallway, always after he walked it. Sometimes the mirrors reflected the lights being on when they weren't. Other times they reflected nothing at all. And each morning, the salt line on the floor had grown wider, as if something was expanding beneath it. Desperate measures. He called Ibu Saras again, told her everything. She didn't speak for a full minute. Then, softly, "Did you complete the ritual?" "Yes." "Did she cross over?" "I think so." "Then what you're seeing isn't her." "Then what is it?" She exhaled slowly. The thing that was trapped in that apartment didn't disappear. It was never hers to bind. It was only hers to delay. "Then where is it?" "It's where you are." He hung up, sat in the dark. The mirror in the corner faced him again, though he hadn't moved it. He stood, walked to it, and saw something behind him. He turned. Nothing. Turned back to the mirror, and there it was again. A shadow in the doorway. Tall, still, patient. He didn't sleep. Instead, he scrubbed the floor, tore out the floorboards, burned incense, poured salt, whispered every prayer he could remember. But the stain didn't fade. It deepened, darkened, until it looked like a hole. And then it breathed. The phone rings again. Midnight. His phone rang once more. He didn't need to check the screen. He answered. "You brought it home," the voice whispered. "Not Kartika. Lower. Older. You burned the building. You finished the circle. But the door doesn't close behind you." "Who are you?" "The thing that waits when promises are broken." "What do you want?" "Not want. Remember." Pause. "I fed you. Now you wear me." The line went dead. The mirror cracked again. He looked at his reflection. Not a crack, a splinter, right down the center, just like the first time. But this time, the reflection didn't smile. It leaned forward, closer, and whispered, "You're almost ready to become the next address."
Some doors don't open with a key, and some, once opened, were never meant to close. Not by hands, not by rituals, not by the living. It began
with time skipping. At first, a few minutes lost here or there. He'd pour a cup of tea, blink, and find it cold. He'd glance at the clock, check his messages, and suddenly it would be hours later. But then it got worse. He found himself waking up in different rooms of his apartment, fully dressed, standing, as if someone had paused him mid-action, mid-thought, and then walked away. The salt line that circled his living room now had footprints inside it, and they weren't his. The mirror had eyes. One night, he caught the mirror watching him. Not reflecting, watching. He tested it. Moved left, the reflection moved right. Tilted his head, the reflection stayed still. And then it smiled without him. He covered all the mirrors, taped black cloth over every reflective surface, but the reflections moved anyway. They began appearing in things that shouldn't reflect: the glass of his microwave, the puddle on the bathroom floor, the blank screen of his phone. And no matter what angle he stood at, the same image stared back. Apartment 1006. Still intact, still lit, still waiting. The door begins appearing. It started as a shape in the wallpaper, a faint outline, rectangular, with a brass knob. Then the next night, it was solid, right there in the hallway of his own apartment. He touched it. It was real, cool to the touch, silent, but radiating something ancient. Not evil exactly, but patient, like a mouth that didn't need to open to speak. He tried to ignore it. He left the house, booked a hotel, spent 2 nights sleeping in unfamiliar sheets. But when he woke, the door was there too, built into the wall of the hotel room. He screamed. The staff came. They saw nothing, just white walls, clean, empty. They offered to call someone. He declined, because he knew this wasn't madness. It was continuation. The ritual hadn't ended. It had spread. Digital haunting. His phone no longer obeyed him. It turned on by itself, opened the call log, showed dozens of missed calls from 62-1006-62. When he deleted them, they returned. He tried factory resetting the device. That only changed one thing. Now, the wallpaper was different. It showed the hallway, floor 10, the door to apartment 1006 slightly ajar. And each time he unlocked his screen, the door crept farther open. He stopped using the phone, switched to a landline. But even then, the phone would ring at 3:33 a.m. every night. If he didn't answer, it rang louder the next night. If he did, the voice simply whispered, "We're ready for you." And then, all you have to do is open the door. The memories blur. He began to forget things, important things. His mother's voice, his last name, what year it was. But he remembered every detail of the apartment. He could draw it blindfolded. The layout, the windows, the incense placement, the exact placement of the mirror that no longer cracked. His own apartment had slowly become a copy of it. Same layout, same smell, same silence. Only the air was heavier here, like someone had just left the room or was still standing right behind him. The visitors came. At night. They didn't knock. They entered. People he didn't know. Faces blurred. Figures in the corner of his vision. He'd turn the lights on. Nothing. Turn them off. They were closer. Once he woke to find someone sleeping in his bed, facing away, breathing. He backed out of the room, shaking, tears in his eyes. When he returned 5 minutes later, the bed was made, the sheets still warm. The final voicemail. One morning, after waking up on the kitchen floor, he found his phone back on the table. It was powered off, yet the screen displayed new voicemail from +62 1006 62. When he pressed play, Kartika's voice, soft, gentle, distant. You tried so hard to close the door, but some doors were never yours to close. You were the key. You always were. A pause, then, we're inside now, and we need someone to show others the way. The door opens. That night, the door in the hallway fully materialized. No longer a shape, no longer a shimmer. Solid, real. The knob turned on its own. The door opened slowly. Light spilled out, warm, inviting. Come in, a voice said. You're expected. Andika stood there, barefoot, no candles, no salt, no fear, only recognition. This wasn't a haunting. This was a passing of the torch. He stepped forward, crossed the threshold, and the door closed behind him. Back in the apartment, the lights flickered once, then went out. The mirror cracked down the middle, and his phone lit up. New contact saved. Agent Andika, Block D, viewings. Some listings are never meant to be filled. Some viewings are rituals in disguise. And some agents never leave. It began with a message, a standard property inquiry sent late at night. No name, no punctuation, just need urgent viewing, Block D, Unit 1006. The real estate agent, Bhima, frowned at his screen. He had never heard of Block D. He double-checked his company's listings. There was a Skyline Residences project listed, but Block D had no current availability. In fact, there was no Block D on the website at all. He searched deeper. Nothing. He thought about deleting the message, writing it off as a scam, a prank. But something about it felt familiar, and money was tight. The elevator works. The next evening, he drove to the location the sender had pinned. Skyline Residences, East Jakarta. Clean, gated, quiet. Security let him in without question. Agent Bhima, they said, glancing at a clipboard. Viewing in Block D? Wait, it's real? Of course, the guard smiled. You're the 4th this month. That answer should have bothered him, but it didn't. Not the way it should have. He parked, walked through the narrow path behind the main buildings, found Block D standing alone, unlit. Dust coated the floor of the lobby. The ceiling tiles sagged. The elevator doors were scuffed and dented. Still, the button lit up when he pressed it.
He stepped in. The panel only allowed one choice. 10. Ding. The elevator opened. The hallway was long, dim, quiet. He walked toward apartment 1006. The door was already ajar. Inside. The lights were on. The room was clean, pristine. Faint incense drifted in the air, mixed with the warm smell of jasmine and candle wax. Bhima stepped inside, quietly announcing his presence. "Hello? I'm here for the viewing?" There was no answer, but the apartment didn't feel empty. He glanced around. Modern furniture, simple layout, neutral colors, almost too perfect, like a showroom that had never been lived in. He approached the window. Outside, the city lights blinked in the distance, but the reflection in the glass showed something else. Fire, flickering, soft, rising behind him. He turned, but the apartment remained still. Then he noticed the mirror on the wall. It showed the room, but not this room. Another one, darker, older. In the reflection, someone sat cross-legged in the middle of the floor, not facing him, still, waiting. The agent arrives. From the hallway behind him came a soft voice. "You're early." Bhima turned sharply. A man stood in the doorway, wearing a simple shirt, slacks, clipboard in hand, smiling. "I'm Agent Andika. Are you here for the 1006 viewing?" "Wait, I thought I was the agent." Andika tilted his head. "Aren't we all?" The man walked past him, straight to the center of the room, knelt by the rug, pulled it aside, revealing a salt circle faintly glowing beneath. "Don't worry, you're not the first." "The first what?" "The first one to think you were just here to show a room." He gestured to the mirror. "That's not a mirror." "What is it?" "It's a window." "To where?" Andika looked up. "To the place between the memory and the fire." The real viewing begins. The lights flickered. The furniture faded. The scent of incense thickened. Andika opened the book, an old one wrapped in red string. Symbols lined the pages, ritualistic, repetitive. Every time someone steps inside, the ritual begins again. The apartment doesn't want visitors, it wants witnesses. Bhima backed away. "This is a mistake. I shouldn't be here." "You're already here. I can leave." "Not if the door closes." Bhima turned. The door to the hallway was gone. Only a blank wall remained. Andika stood, stepped inside the salt circle. The mirror began to hum. "It's waiting for your name." "Why mine?" "Because you answered the call." "I didn't know what it was." "No one ever does." Kartika returns. The room grew cold. The candles flickered and turned blue. From the far corner, a shape emerged. A woman, pale, dressed in white. Her hair floated slightly, as if underwater. She moved slowly, stepped to the edge of the salt circle, looked at Bhima. "Do you remember?" "No," he whispered. "Then it will remember for you." She turned to Andika. "It's ready." He nodded, took the red string from the floor, tied one end to his wrist, tied the other to Bhima's.
This is how we begin. This time, you don't run. The mirror pulsed once, then twice, then cracked, and the room vanished into light.
Some stories don't end when the building falls. Some stories wait, not for rescue, not for rest, but for someone new to remember them. No one heard from Bhima after that night. The agency marked him no-show. His clients got auto replies. His apartment lease expired. Eventually, someone opened the door to check. It was empty, clean, not just of belongings, but of presence, as if he'd never lived there at all. Only one thing remained: a mirror, framed in black, cracked down the middle. The lot is sold. A few months later, a new developer purchased the land where Block D once stood. Plans were fast-tracked. The construction crew arrived. The surveyors measured, and the blueprints were drawn. But something kept happening. Whenever they tried to build, the foundation shifted. Pillars cracked. Concrete refused to dry. One foreman swore he saw footprints in the cement, barefoot, facing downward. Another claimed to have found a door frame in the soil, standing alone. When they pulled it out, the sky turned gray. Within hours, the site flooded. No rain, just water. They tried again, and each time the same result. The phone call. At a nearby agency, a junior agent sat scrolling through cold leads. It was late. Everyone else had gone home. The computer flickered. The phone rang. Unknown number. She picked up. Hello? Silence. Then a voice, polite, warm. I'm interested in a viewing. Which unit? Block D, apartment 1006. She frowned. That block's not in use. A pause. Then the voice, softer now. Is Agent Andika available? The call dropped. The computer screen refreshed, and there it was, a new listing. Skyline Residences, Block D, Unit 1006, open for viewing. She hovered over the listing, clicked once. Inside the file was a photo, a man standing in an apartment, clean, modern, smiling, clipboard in hand. Agent Andika. Below the photo, a message appeared. We've been expecting you. A closing reflection. The door was never about the building. It was about the space between memory and guilt. A ritual never completed, a name never remembered, a soul that stayed and one that chose to return. Kartika crossed over, but the apartment? The apartment is a mirror now. It finds those who carry cracks in their reflection. It offers them something familiar: warm lights, clean floors, the smell of incense, a chance to feel known. And when they step inside, the door always closes gently behind them. Never slams, never locks, because it knows they won't try to leave. Welcome to apartment 1006. Please remove your shoes. We've been waiting.